Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today I'm going to show you how to do the elite or even regular dragon raid in Call of Dragons. If you like Call of Dragons guides designed to help you get value and smash your enemies, consider smashing the subscribe button for daily Call of Dragons videos designed to help you level up your gameplay. And a big thank you, by the way, to the makers of Call of Dragons for sponsoring today's video. There's a lot that I want to talk about, and we one-shot the elite boss, which was pretty cool. So we didn't get as much opportunity to practice the mechanics, and we make some mistakes right off the bat here, especially when I say we, I mean me as a tank. The first thing you saw in this fight is that we didn't actually get close enough to the boss to be tanking it immediately. This was a big mistake. And then the second thing you need to do is always get out of the breath, even if you're the tank. So you see he'll do a huge area of effect here. You want to be not standing in that, even if you're the tank. And a couple people get hit by this, and they get a little bit GG'd. It's a lot of damage. Now, big picture, what are you doing in this boss fight? Well, in the dragon fight, if you are dealing damage, you should bring mages, and I'll show you why. And you'll do a bunch of damage while your tanks try to keep this thing relatively contained. And if you're a damage player, the big objective is don't stand in the poop, like the standard 101 raiding mechanic. By that, I mean any template you see that shows up on the ground, don't stand in it, you'll get wrecked. Don't stand in the fire. This is like classic MMO raiding 101 stuff. And it is a fun fight. Now, this fight has several phases. As you can see, we've gone into phase 2. Phase 2 is where the dragon flies in the air and he starts shooting fireballs down, and there are little acolytes that spawn on the ground that we have to kill. When the acolytes are about to die, they have a huge damage template that goes on the ground, and you can see there's a huge fire template that the boss puts down, and he breathes fire across the arena, which is literally happening right now. So I'm like bobbing and weaving, dodging the acolyte templates on the ground and also the fire, and then you get your mana stone. Very critical that your tanks heal up. Unlike in other fights where I felt like the healing was instant, you can see this healing happens over time, and you do need to stand in that area to receive the healing. So one thing that's happening here is that folks are dealing damage. And again, the reason you want mages is that it's easier to stay out of the damage templates because you have longer range, rather than marksman, which will put you closer, and you need to be able to pay more attention and know the fight better in order to dodge the AoE templates of the dragon. But the infantry tanks, we have 5 of them. We only needed probably 3, but they're there just to make sure that the dragon is tanked. Now, this is important. This right here, this purple cloud he puts on the ground, is a confusion effect. If you're too close to the dragon, you're feared. You lose control of your character, and you can see I literally just walked into the damage template while I was feared. So as an off tank, when you're not main tanking, I should say, your job is to get out of the template. If you're damaged, your job is to be at your absolute maximum range to not get wrecked by that confuse and then get hit by the AoE. Technically, you can clear the debuff if somebody uses Spirit Bangles, but it just feels like a tech play. Honestly, just don't stand in this purple haze when it fires up, which is happening now. There's the confuse effect. And as a tank, my job is to just stand around. So for half the fight, half your tanks are literally just standing off to the sides. And their main goal is to have on the taunt artifact and to be able to taunt if necessary in order to prevent the dragon from just absolutely savaging the rest of your raid. Now, we did this the first time without even having a tank on the regular raid. But for the elite raid, it's pretty critical you have tanks. Now, a part of the reason we also have so many tanks is that the dragon is applying a debuff to whoever he's hitting. And that debuff stacks up to 10 times, and it stacks very quickly. Get to 10 stacks, and your next hit will kill you. So that's another reason why the tanks are rotating fairly quickly, because the dragon is applying these stacks that will ultimately wreck you. Here I come in to tank again. I am relieving the other tanks. I hit taunt. Somebody dropped a healing field on us, which was really cool. Tear of Arbon, big poggers. Generally speaking, I feel like the raid is better off if you just have a damage artifact, but it was still really cool to get healed as the tank, especially because the amount of health I'm going to have at the end of this might actually be the amount of health I got from that heal. Here comes another fear. If you're main tank, like, you just get wrecked by the fear. It just is what it is, okay? And then, boom, I'm about to get hit by this thing. You can see the mages stay out of range of this fire breath by default if they're at their max range, which is really critical. And we've almost got this boss. He's almost dead. However, there aren't actually two phases for this boss. It's not like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. What I mean is you basically rotate between the phase 1 mechanics and the phase 2 mechanics. And unfortunately, we were in this phase for just long enough to get another Acolyte phase. GG. So even though this boss at 5 minutes and 38 seconds was almost dead, and we would have had probably the world record speed clear for this on the Elite, he enters into another flight phase. So here we are, taking out the Acolytes all over again, dodging the fire, and I'm not complaining, because look, hey, we get more time with the boss, and it's kind of fun. As a tank who's almost dead, I just kind of stand around and do whatever I want at this point. My useful life as a tank has basically all but expired until I can get a Mana Stone. So I'm just running around trying to stay alive at this point, hoping that I can pick up a Mana Stone. Once the Acolytes are dead, shortly thereafter, the dragon will come and land. So at this point, I grab the Healing Stone. Dragon is dropping fireballs down. He's now getting ready to land. At this point, I'm enjoying this heal, and I'll let the other tanks do their thing. Looks like he's actually not landing yet. Okay. Oh, he's just going to wreck some people with some fire. Oh, no, looks like they walked out of it. Honestly, you get a ton of time to avoid the dragon's attacks here. As long as you don't pin yourself into a corner with like an Acolyte, you're probably going to be fine. There is another Healing Stone. At this point, the fight's almost over, so I step in to tank. And then he drops a Confuse Field almost immediately, the AoE Fear. I get hit with that fear, but the fight is over. We get the win. All in all, a really fun fight. It's honestly just a DPS check. Do you have enough damage to actually take down the dragon? And let me show you the reports in-game to talk a little bit more about how you can optimize your damage and also a little bit with your tanking. Okay, here we are in game, and as you can see, this is the avatar frame you get for the first capture of the dragon. Kind of cool. You can still do the Elite Raid and not do the first capture and still get the base rewards for taking down the dragon. So lots of people should get rotated in to knock down the dragon here. And if we get a look at the reports, there's a couple critical insights, and I'll give you some feedback on what pairings work the best. When we did the regular raid on the dragon, I was 3rd for damage, and I used Lily with Velen because we were using mages, and I made sure to use my Celestials, which have extra base attack. And that extra base attack went a really long way. I used the Infernal Flame. I think that's what it's called. The special Lilia artifact is the one that I used. So I think that's the best that you can do if you want to do just huge amounts of damage here. And the amount of damage, I mean, yeah, there's a 30,000 gap between these, but it's pretty close. And I think everybody near the top was using the mage combo. So for damage, that's premium. Works very, very well. If you wanted to use marksman, you could either use Nico and Kanara or Nico and Gwanwyn, and I think both of those combos would do well. As far as the Elite Raid went, the primary damage dealers were also, I believe, mages. You can see the damage numbers are higher, in part because the fight runs longer, because there's more health on the boss, right? And in terms of damage received, yeah, as a tank, I took a lot of damage here, which is sort of my goal. Sort of. I mean, it's really just to keep the boss's attention more than it is to eat damage. As far as tank combos go, in my opinion, your number one goal is to maintain threat. And because I'm a T5 player, my objective was to do high damage to help maintain my threat on the boss and not lose that threat to a DPS player. So in that regard, I used Nika and Madeline, and I think that's the combo to use. You could use Garwood for tankiness, and I think Mad Phantom was doing that, and it worked just fine. You could also use Hosk, gives you extra troops, but I do think your best combo is probably Madeline primary, Nika secondary. That would be the way I would run that combo. I did use a small amount of universal tokens to take Madeline to 5-5-1-1 for this particular takedown. I don't know that it really made any difference, but I did want to max the second skill before I unlocked the third and then unlocked the fourth, which I subsequently did. In addition, you can see my Nika is not even that skilled up. I mean, she's in a great spot, but she's 5-1, 5-1, which actually is kind of amazing. Like, the march speed and infantry attack's really good. And I used a Nika primary, as you saw throughout this video. So from a tanking standpoint, Nika primary was great. And of course, I used, as I was mentioning, the taunt artifact. Your objective with that is to use the taunt whenever you're in need of grabbing the threat. But keep in mind, it may take the full 5 seconds for the boss to start to attack you, because often what will happen is you hit the taunt, but the boss is doing some other animations already, and those animations will complete before they actually change who they're targeting and what they're doing. So the taunt helmet really doesn't have like a ton of range, and also it often has a delayed time to actually observe the taunt working. So even though you technically taunt the boss right away, it takes time for the boss to finish up their animations. And as I mentioned, the alternative for some players in your raid is the Cleansing Charm, which theoretically could be used to clear off debuffs, including that confusion/fear effect, where everybody was running around like crazy. But overall, as I mentioned at the start of the video, the fight is fairly simple. Stay out of the poop if you're a DPS player, and do lots of damage at your maximum range. Use mages, and that will be simple. If you use marksmen, then you are going to need to dodge and be really smart and really active and attentive. So just bring mages. Easier play, right? And if you are a tank, your goal is to rotate in and keep the boss's attention away from the raid. And ultimately, you may die, but there should be like 4 tanks. And that rotation of tanks should allow you to heal, as you saw I did, and pop in to tank periodically. And I think this could probably be done with as low as 3 tanks, but why push your luck? As long as you've got enough damage to win in the 8 minutes, having the cushion of extra tanks seems like not a bad thing to me. Now, for those of you wondering, wait a minute, didn't you win Zone 3? Why is it that DNS has the dragon? That little bit of lore around the evolution of our server will probably have to come in a subsequent video, but the short version of the story is that we're working with the Dragon family to form arguably the strongest server in the game. And I believe that we already have the most City Hall 25 accounts of any server, and we're on our way to having the most T5s of any server in the game. Even the ones that have been around for like almost, 8 months, 9 months in beta state. We have more T5s than them as well, I think, or we're really close to it. So all that to say, we've made a really strong server with a 24/7 uptime. We've got a primarily Chinese team in DNS and a primarily US European team in the Blood family here, which is going to just be really, really fierce to battle against. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, consider doing so, because I think we're going to have some really crazy fights in the subsequent seasons and battles ahead. And in a worst case, we have an agreement to fight each other and then share the dragon afterwards. So there's always going to be fighting to enjoy in our server, which I think is going to make the game really fun. And if you're looking for other guides for behemoths, I'll have a card probably up top for the playlist where I go through all of the behemoth raids, and you can see exactly how they're done. Alternatively, I'll have cards in the end screen for other behemoth raids you might want to check out.